What's the memory do you create when you walk in the door?
Welcome to the Cleaning Up Podcast, Millionaire Secrets of the Home Services Industry, brought to you by me, Ron Holt, CEO and founder of Two Maids and a Mop, America's fastest growing cleaning company. I get a chance to sit down with home service industry pros and other entrepreneurial leaders so they can share their stories, their insight, their experiences. It's so much fun. You're going to learn so much, and you're going to be inspired to take your small business into a national brand just like I did. Let's jump right into the interview. Today, we have Jeanne Bliss. Jeanne is, for the most part, the godmother of customer experience. That's what I call her, what a lot of the people in the industry call her. She is an expert on customer experience. She has pioneered the role of Chief Customer Officer. She's held that Chief Customer Officer for multiple large organizations like Lands' End, Coldwell Banker, Allstate, and even Microsoft. She's also a best-selling author of multiple books. I had the pleasure of reading one of her more recent books. It's called Would You Do That to Your Mother? It's a great book that's filled with tools that you can start applying immediately, turn uncomfortable customer moments into we've got your back experiences that would make your mom proud and hopefully, win the love and loyalty from your customers. And it's the perfect book for the Two Maids and a Mop world, because that's literally the sort of transition, the revolution that we're in right now, trying to become this new aged cleaning service that truly focuses on customer experience. So Jeanne, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, it's so great to be with you. And I really admire the work that you and all of the franchisees are doing out there.
Well, somebody's got to clean those dirty homes. So we might as well be the one doing it.
I believe it is an essential service because, you talk about peace of mind. You're making homes homey. So it's fantastic.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So, I'm so excited to talk about the things that you've learned over the years. You've got, here at Two Maids and a Mop, like I said in the intro, we've been really working hard to improve our customer experience. And it's a bit of a revolution. I know there's a lot that's been happening in this year, 2020. But before all the craziness, we had marked this year as sort of our CX revolutionary year, where we wanted by the end of the year to just totally be transformed in terms of what we provide our customers beyond just a clean home, obviously. And so, for a lot of this year, that's what we've been focused on. And what I'm super excited about talking to you is now, what's next. And so when I read your book, beyond so many of the really fun practical examples that you provide, it was important to me because I think that at a certain point, a lot of companies can get their heads around the idea of customer experience, but very few actually do anything about it. And so you've been a sort of a pioneer in this industry, the CX industry, in that you have sort of created that title, that Chief Customer Officer title, and how it can be used across an organization, whether it's a large one like Microsoft or a small one like Two Maids and a Mop. So if you don't mind, just kind of take us back in time and tell everyone a little bit about your history and what led you to the CX world.
Sure. Well, thank you again. I have to go all the way back to how I grew up. I had a dad who was a small business owner. He owned a Buster Brown shoe store in Des Plaines, Illinois. There were 7 of us. My maiden name is Lombardo. His name is Vincenzo Giuseppe Cristando Lombardo. And he shooed a generation of children and their children's children. He became a part of the story of people's lives. And that's really our opportunity and your responsibility. And so much so that when my dad retired, a line of people, Ron, 3 blocks long, stood to say goodbye to him, that they couldn't imagine buying shoes from anybody else, because he was a part of the moments in their life, baptisms, Christmases, all of those moments. And so the connection really for me is, how do we weave our humanity into how we do our business so that there is a memory that pulls people not only to what you do, but how you do it and how you show up as people. And after that, I had this great opportunity. I answered an ad in the Chicago Tribune to go train 2,500 phone operators at a growing company at the time called Lands' End in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. After AT&T, we were one of the second or third companies to have an 800 number 24/7. And my job was not only to train the phone operators on the product, but also culturally enable them to bring the best version of themselves to work. These were farm people who got up in the morning and hayed the fields at 4 o'clock and 4 a.m. and plucked warm eggs from the underbellies of hens, and then came to work and clocked into Land's End. And our job was to give them the tools, but also to get out of their way and let them be who they were, because that hominess, that homespunness, who we were as people, and combined with the quality of what we did, set us apart. I spent 10 years there. We grew from 100 million in sales to $1 billion when I was there, Ron. And I presented actually to the financial analysts the connection between growing the value of your customer base and long-term profitability. I think I was 26 years old. So it made my career, the combination of my dad and Land's End for 10 years really gave me these two opportunities of lightning in a bottle, where I was able to be in environments where I saw people grow their business through what I call congruence of heart, knowing what's right, and habit, running a business that enables people to rise to that. After that, I deliberately went to multiple industries to build that kit bag. After Land's End, I went to something very different, Mazda Motor of America, where it was a dealer network. They were not employees similar of Mazda. They bought the cars from us, and we built processes that we recommended. But my job was to build the connection between lifetime value and how we treated customers and the quality and value of the vehicle. After that, I went to Coldwell Banker, a franchise organization, and my job was franchisee loyalty, making sure the franchisee grew their business and helping them grow their business by delivering great experiences. In fact, when I was there, Ron, my team created the first version of the MLS for buying and selling homes, which, as you guys remember, the franchisee used to own, or the realtor used to own the data with those pages. Remember those pages and pages?
Oh, yeah.
But in this now, we put a little more power in the customer's hands, and that was a transition and something we couldn't all imagine living without. After that, I knew I needed financial services and a bigger company to test out these tools and these approaches, so I went to Allstate. I was the first vice president of customer satisfaction and retention. I reported to the president of the personal lines company. And then and again, deliberately changed industries because I needed to stretch that muscle and figure out how to do the work of the business, because it's all about the underbelly of the organization, how people are motivated, what makes them tick, how do you unite them. And then finally, I knew I needed technology. So, Microsoft. I was the general manager of worldwide customer and partner loyalty. In 2002, I started coaching leaders around the world and doing keynote speeches on this, and then have written these 4 books. And am also the co-founder of the Worldwide Customer Experience Professionals Association. So that's all I got.
Well, like I said, you're the godmother of customer experience, no doubt about it. You know how to make a customer loyal to an organization, and that's why I'm so excited to talk with you today. So, if you don't mind, let's kind of go back all of those tenures at those organizations. I'm sure there's a whole story or 100 stories maybe within it, but the Land's End one kind of relates to, I think, most of our audience, because a lot of our franchisees and other small business owners that are listening are building their business from the ground up. It's a true, I wouldn't say brick and mortar, but it's pretty close to a brick and mortar business nowadays when it comes to cleaning services. And, we're starting with 0 customers from day one. We have 0 customers. And so everything's in front of us, and it's one customer at a time, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it sounds like Land's End was very similar to that.
Very, very similar. In fact, Gary Comer, our founder, would say to all of us, think small, think one customer at a time, and the rest will come.
I agree. And that's what we are working our way towards here. And so if you don't mind, I'd love to kind of go back and revisit that. I bet you could probably write a few books on just that Land's End experience. But what were some of the things that, as the chief customer officer, what were some of the things that you diagnosed in terms of issues? And what did you do to correct those issues? And how long did it take for that to really come to fruition? How long, in other words, how beyond just the diagnosis of the issue and the solution, when did people start seeing results from that?
Sure. Well, it was interesting. Land's End was a combination of making sure that we were 100% reliable in what we did. Because back then, it was weird to write a check to some company you didn't know, because people were still writing checks and trusting that they would deliver a service. And so just like what you're doing, as folks go into someone's home, especially right now, world of COVID and every other kind of situation, what we knew we had to do is give people peace of mind. And so one of the most important things we did was a guarantee. And we called it guaranteed, period, no ifs, ands, and buts. And it was really the cornerstone of the growth of that business. We let the customer decide if they were happy or not. We had one incident where a guy returned a pair of socks 25 times, and the phone operators would be uncomfortable because they felt like the customer was taking advantage. But we had to tell them, look, this is the customer's point of view, and whether it's lousy, it feels lousy, but they have to make the call. To that, though, were some things that we also had to do to enable the people on the front line to be able to live to that. And one of those things was not clipping people's wings on their talk time. Lots of people in our industry would post talk times and make it a punitive thing. So the corollary would be, how long does it take to clean a home? Are you giving people a time limit, or are you saying, do it right within reason, of course, but do what you think is right? And at one point in time, as part of my job, we brought a really smart guy in. I think he was from one of the big phone companies to help to run the phone operation. And Ron, behaviors and habits that come from some industries that aren't as culturally dependent as Land's End are, don't translate. And so this guy started posting the talk times, sticking them with push pins outside the cubicles everybody sat in. And as he was hanging them, you love this, I snort one of them. I was walking behind him, pulling them off. Because as soon as you do that, you limit people's ability to rise and to do what's right. And he was so mad at me. I mean, I'm like 24 years old and this short 5'0" Italian girl, right? The audacity. And he's like, what is your problem? I said, this is not how we grow. This is not how we grow. We don't grow this way. What is your problem? I'm going to Dick Anderson, the president. They said, fine, I'll go with you. And he plops those things down and he goes, Jeanne Lombardo, my maiden name's Lombardo, she's doing this. And he goes, she's right. This is what we do. And a big part of it, I think, for franchisees is as you grow, Gary called me the conscience of the company. And it was making sure that we were steering what we did, and as we grew, that we wouldn't lose that. And I think that for franchisees, I saw this at Coldwell Banker, the bigger they became, the harder it was in many ways to hold on to the core of what got them to where they got in the first place.
What was interesting, there's a lot of really cool points to that, but what was interesting, you've said this a couple of times just in this interview, you had full support from leadership at Land's End and along with the other organizations. And so, it's probably a little bit hard for some of our franchisees and again, other small business owners to relate because they're the boss, they're your Gary, and so in our world, our structure is fairly small. It's a lean operating environment we have. The connection from a cleaner to the franchise owner is pretty direct, which is great. That's not a negative thing. It's actually a real positive because that means you can actually make change much easier. You're not a long way from the ground, in other words. How important, and this seems sort of a rhetorical question, I'm thinking, but how important is for leadership to be all in? How often do you see that even, that management is all in on customer experience?
Well, I've been explaining customer experience is becoming this label now. And at the end of the day, it really is leadership. It's choosing how you will grow and being just clear about how you will not grow. And the core of it, especially in a business like your franchisees, all of you out there, is communication and being really clear about communicating to people how you're going to enable them to act, to bring the best version of themselves to work. Gary built something called the principles of doing business, and that became our own conscience. There were things in there like what's right for the customer is what's right for all of us. We will never falsely inflate prices to get a bang for us. Our guarantee period, so that could be something that's really fascinating for people to consider, is build your version. You can be 4 or 5 principles of doing business that everybody can then own. And then what you need to do, Ron, is make decisions on how you're running the business and communicate that back to people so they can feel pride from it and also emulate it, do it themselves. And I think for, especially franchise business where you've got people out in the field and they are you when they're there, they need to feel that pride of ownership and the ability to really relate and present who you are.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, if you're not totally on board, if you're not totally in love and believe that customer experience can make or break your business, then no one else is going to believe that either, or care to believe that, I should say.
Yeah. The other thing I think is powerful for people to think about is memory creation. Memory creation is the currency of your brand. So start having the conversation with people about what's the memory do you create when you walk in the door? What memory do you create when you finish cleaning? What memory do they have when you've left the room? That was very much a foundation of what we did at Land's End. We thought about the emotion on a mom's face as the UPS handed her a box with overalls for her child. We thought about the feeling of pulling a turtleneck over your head and feeling that snap for the first time. And we thought about what emotion we wanted people to have when they hung up with one of our phone operators. And so what could be cool is to also build an emotion map and say, what are the emotions people have, especially right now, fear, worry, concern, and how can you flip those with tiny acts of kindness? In the mom book, I talk about, if you're lucky, the cable guy or your refrigerator repairman can tell you when they're going to be there, but it's how they greet you and if they put booties on their feet and how they navigate your furniture gingerly that tells you the kind of mom they've got.
Well, that makes me think about, so I can't remember if this was in your book or in one of your podcasts I've heard. Jeanne has an amazing podcast where she talks to thought leaders across CX industry across the country. And it's just by itself, it's informative enough for you to really learn enough about customer experience to be an expert. But anyway, there is like a burger joint somewhere in the South that you talk about what management.
Pale's Sudden Service. It's called Pale's Sudden Service. They're in Tennessee. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you got to tell this story because what was so interesting to me is what management did to not necessarily make this some CX objective, but what they did for the people working for them so that they would then know what to do when it came time to perform some type of over-the-top service for their customers.
So are you referring to the psychometric survey that they do when they hire people?
That, and if I remember correctly, a large part of Senior Executives Week was working with frontline employees on improving themselves as people, not as burger guys or whatever.
That's right. So thanks, Ron. 2 really important points here, I think, for all of you also, as you think about who you're hiring to go into the homes of your customers, because again, they're your badge, right? They're your flag. Is hire for what we called at Land's End, the light behind the eyes, the human, the care, the joy, and then talk about their technical skills. And what Pales did, which was genius, was they also turned that into science, and they worked with a psychiatrist and came up with I think 32 question psychometric survey that didn't ask about the skills, but got into the underbelly of who the person was as a human, because they wanted to hire true, genuine people who were collaborative and who had the core values that would be part of the growth of their business. And then the other thing that each of the executives had to do was spend about 25 to 30% of their time each week coaching these young people, and a lot of them were in high school and college, just out of college, etc. Coaching them on how to, I saw you interact that way. Let's have a conversation about that. So they were enabling them to grow and coaching them on who they were as people. And it's fascinating. Again, reliability has to be what you deliver first, because if you don't clean the home, and if the home isn't spotless, and if people's perceptions of what they get from you doesn't exist, so those are basically the table stakes. But then you elevate your company and show up differently, and show up as differently from any other service that's equal to yours because of who your people are. And what Pale Sudden Service has won is a Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award, which, if anybody knows about that, Ron, I'm sure you know, it's one of the hardest awards to receive. They go through the key performance indicators of every aspect of your operation. So they are 100% reliable, but then they have this element of humanity that has driven their growth. And even their hot dog and hamburger stands, it looks like a big hot dog on the top. And, it's joy when people come to the window. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, that particular example resonated the most with me because of the business that we're in. We're hiring folks that historically are very similar to food service, in that this job is just that. It's, for most people, that's when they apply here, it's just a job. It's not a career. And so the fact that senior management felt like they could come in and really focus on the people, that's top-down leadership if I've ever seen it, and it proves that there's a real commitment to the people. And then that commitment, whether it's direct or not, always finds its way, on the ground directly with those customers. And so if you've got an employee that's thriving in life, if they're growing, even if that growth's outside of the business that they're in now, if they're succeeding in life, then they're going to be more apt to want to make one of their customers smile, in my opinion.
That's right. Well, and I think the other thing that especially could be fascinating and really powerful for all of you out there is elevate the purpose of what your people are doing. Everybody wants to be a part of something greater than themselves. Here's an example. We were working with a small spa company in Australia. Again, it was a small mom and pop initially, coming up, growing. And what was happening was similar to what you may have happened, is hiring lots of people who were technically adept at doing back rubs or nails or toes or any of the stuff that you'd get done at a spa, but they all brought in their own culture, baggage, who they were. And so we completely changed who we were, because we redefined the experience, and the experience was to deliver escape. So if we're going to deliver escape, that means we had to get rid of the hassle of how they parked their car. We greeted them outside, said, give me the keys. Here's a beautifully wrapped aromatic package of oils. This concierge is going to walk you in and soak your feet, so you get the dust of the road and the worry of the day off your mind before we give you your service. Because if you can't remember your service, you can't remember us, and you can't feel value from us. And then we also had to make sure we were hiring people. And so instead of calling them therapists, we called everyone customer escape artists. And so we were hiring customer escape artists. Now, for your folks, you're delivering peace of mind, especially now. Peace of mind that my family is safe, peace of mind that my home is clean, peace of mind that you're to be trusted. And so if you're hiring peace of mind artists and you want to deliver peace of mind, what do your experiences and processes look like? And who are you hiring? What are the attributes of a peace of mind artist?
It changes, right? Yeah.
Totally shifts everything.
Yeah. Yeah. The entire hiring process becomes 180 degrees differently, you know?
Well, and you're elevating. You're not cleaning houses. You're delivering peace of mind.
Right.
That's a bigger deal.
We may steal that one if you're okay with it.
You should. I would love for you. I would love to help you with that.
Well, let's talk later. Well, let's start talking about, action. So we've got these small business owners, our franchisees across the country who I think for the most part are true believers of customer experience. They've heard, countless thought leaders. They've heard this interview. Now they're ready to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've been in this for more than, a lot of people even knew that customer experience existed. You were there
We
before.
didn't have that label when I started, for sure.
Right. It was just customer service, right? Or just good customer service.
Doing what's right. Yeah, exactly. Then all the labels came. Yep.
Yeah. So what are some of the mistakes that you've seen made? Now that's what I'm most interested in here is now what? Now what do we do? What type of action do we take? And when we start taking action, what can we do to prevent mistakes? Because what I have seen, even from my own personal perspective, is that the energy level is there, but the mountain of work in front of you to create that culture shift is so enormous that it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so
Right.
you tend to want to just stop,
Yep.
And so what are some things that we can look to avoid so that we don't hit that wall?
Sure. So first of all, don't boil the ocean. Don't do too much. Secondly, create one version of, I call it the truth, of what you're going for. For example, I don't even call it a journey map anymore. I call it a goal map. So, and it's not a chronological map because your customer are going to go in and out of the goals that they're trying to achieve with you, not chronologically, but rather based on what their life is. So, define the goals that are important to your customer versus what you want to get from people. Yes, you want to get more cleans. Yes, you want to get more money. Yes, you want to grow your business, but grow your business by improving the life. So start with the life and map the goals. So the goals are find someone to clean, to determine how much I need. Whatever the goals are, we have to work on what those are. But also, don't build it without your people involved. Don't start mapping the goals without giving your people a seat at the table. And then don't roll anything out without talking to your customers. Don't be afraid, especially now in the world of Zoom, get 10, 15 customers on a call or video with you and say, what's important to you? What's working? What's not? And then you can build a very simple map, if you will, that starts to be kind of like a shopping mall map, the consistent way that you constantly will go back and say, one of the things we know customers care about is this. Let's talk about how we're going to come together and deliver, and what's the emotion we want to deliver at the end of that. Okay, what are we doing now? Okay, what should we do? And so if you create simplicity in the map, get your people involved, bring your customers in, talk about it, and then you're delivering back, it doesn't feel that enormous, but you're breaking it into individual goals that then also, Ron, require people to come together. Because the goal of cleaning, leaving someone with peace of mind is going to be broken down into certain things. But you need people to come together so you don't say, oh, it's all about the person who's in the home. A lot more people have to come together. It's also billing is part of peace of mind, right?
Right.
Do you show up on your scheduling system as part of peace of mind? So does that make sense?
No, it does. And, it actually leads to a second question for me. So franchising is all about system, process, and uniformity. You want in Spokane, Washington, you want the service to look and feel the same as it does in Atlanta, Georgia. So, with that comes a lot of systems. In a lot of cases, a lot of very boring systems. And, customer experience, while we don't like to think of it as a process, it's its own process. There's a lot of things that can be automated within it, but it is a process. And so what we've seen from a very practical perspective in our transformation this year to be a CX company, we've seen things that really take hold in, City A. and city B goes, man, that worked in city A. Let's try it over here. And it becomes almost very cookie cutter after that. And so how do we create process for customer experience initiatives, but at the same time have some freedom to not be so system based? I would hate, for one customer experience system to, fit in a box for everyone, in other words.
No, I agree. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. What we find is when we get employees together and say, tell us about the journey map, what they will map is the processes that they have to follow. And often the processes are to get a customer to conform to what the company wants. But when you talk to customers, the customers will tell you their goals and what they need to have achieved so that they feel value and that they want to continue to work with you. And so it's actually flipping the starting point and recognizing that perhaps some of the processes need to be rethought or reordered or redone. And again, Ron, if you can get back to what's the goal, what's the emotion and the goal, then how are we going to deliver that? It puts things in perspective.
Well, your book sort of speaks volumes on that. So I think that's what sort of drew me to it, is the title. Would you do that to your mother? And I think if you are a manager, or if you're a franchisee, or if you're one of our cleaners across the country, whatever you're doing, whether it's the physical act of cleaning someone's floor or some type of interaction you're having with a customer that maybe is upset, or whatever it might be, if you can ask yourself, would I do that to my mother? The answer, if it's yeah, then it's probably a good thing, right? And is that sort of the intent, create that sort of thinking?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what I wanted to do was simplify the work of CX. And the book is actually 32 things that have impacted all of our lives, broken into 4 sections, because again, it's a roadmap for you. How are you treating your employees? Are you making it easy to do business with you? Do you orient your processes to your customers' goals or to what you want to get from your customers? And those are 2 different things. And do you take the high road? Are you willing to walk away from things that create an unbalanced relationship with customers? For example, Ron, one of my favorite examples is Virgin Hotels decided to get rid of the price gouging that happens in a minibar in a hotel. How many of us love opening a $7 bottle of water, right? Right. Just insane. And it's where the hotels are charging what they can instead of charging what they should, or what's right. And so Raul Leal, the CEO of Virgin Hotels, said, look, we are going to do what we call street pricing. So they send the managers out to the local grocers or market shops or wherever in the metro areas or local areas that they're in. And for whatever it costs you to get a Snicker bar there, that's what they charge you for that, or a bottle of water or a can of Coke or whatever it is. They also don't charge to deliver room service. So all that nickel and diming sticks in our craw. And, I have clients who have lost $1 million customers on a $20 change fee, because the other thing that I want you all to think about is, at the end of the day, what our job is to build a respect delivery machine, which goes all the way back to mom, right? And what she taught us. So, not only would you do that to your mother, but at the end of the day, do your customers feel respected? Do they feel you respect their time, their home, who they are? And is there trust and respect, two-way trust and respect? Do they feel like you're respecting your people in how you're enabling them? If there's something that happens when one of your people is in their home, do they have to stop and ask permission to do an exception? Or have you already brainstormed? I guarantee you guys could all get together and identify in 20 minutes or less the top 5 to 6 reasons why people ask for exceptions. Brainstorm those ahead of time and give your people a kit bag on how to resolve them. In fact, that's what Alaska Airlines does. They've built something they call a We Trust You toolkit, which is an app on a phone, which is inventory the major reasons why customers are disappointed or need help or an exception. And their CEO, just like all of you can say, is we trust you in the moment to make the call of what's right to keep and grow that customer more than a pat program or policy we could have made in a room somewhere. So we know these are going to happen, and you make the call of which one is right.
Well, the decades of your experience in this industry, the books that you've written that are just amazing, to me, I don't want to boil that all down into just two things, but what I take away from this is, as an owner of a business, as a manager of a department, whatever role you're serving in the business, in the organization, it's sort of two things. One, it starts with you. It's personal ownership. If you want your customer journey, your customer experience to be different, then it starts with you. You have to believe that, and you have to create change and make action later on. And then two, caring. You've got to care. That's, again, the book title sort of suggests this, but the reason we do the special things for our mother is because we love our mothers. We want to do things for them, not because we want any of their money. We don't want their stuff. We want their love. And so we care about mom, and that's why we would never do anything that would impair that relationship. And so if we could figure out to have that same level of care for our customers, man, can you imagine the difference in everyone's experiences with every organization? But it's just so rare. It's so rare to see that in today's business world.
Yep. I agree. After I decided that on the homepage of my website, I was going to tell the story of my dad, and what I wanted to do was, Ron, give people a way to think about it. And so boiling it even more is decide what your 3 blocks long is. How do you want to be remembered? And what are the attributes you want people standing in line or coming back to you for? And you need to do that. That's missing, Ron, in 90% or more of this customer experience transformation, is the angsting and the work from leaders to say, we need to know who we want to stand for and how we want to show up. Okay, so what are our customer goals and what are the attributes? At Land's End, we used to say, how do we want to be defined as a person, our entity? Define that. Are you human, trusting, whatever it is? Then you've got to build it. If you want to be a trusting company, how do you build that into your operating model, into your interactions? And then you've got to live it as a leader. You've got to prove that in your own behavior, in how you communicate, in what you do, and how you communicate back. You know what I call that, Ron?
What's that?
Marketing hope.
I like it. Hopefully, can we steal that, or you
yes,
probably
you can steal anything. Just yes, I'm giving it to you. So know it, build it, live it. What's your 3 blocks long? How will you be remembered? How do you want to be remembered after every clean, before every clean, as a company, as a franchise?
Well, I can't agree with you more, Jeanne, and I've enjoyed talking with you today. I've learned so much through your words, and it's a true honor today to have an opportunity to interview you and talk to you about this subject, because, again, you are not just the godmother of customer experience. You are customer experience, and
well, it's joy.
It started with you, and you're still singing its song, and we're proud to know you, and I'm proud to learn from you as well. How can anyone listening to our interview today get in touch with you and connect?
Sure. So I had lucky serendipity, call it whatever it is. I married a guy named Bliss. So from Lombardo to Bliss, my website is customerbliss.com. And everything's there. I answer my own emails, and you can ring me. My phone number is there. Lots of cool information. At the top of the website, in fact, is a quiz. And the quiz is based on the mom book, and you can take that and immediately assess where you are today.
I've heard you say you've got one of your websites. You actually have pictures of moms, right? People have forwarded you pictures.
Oh, yeah, there's a makemomproud.org, I think it is, or makemomproud.com, I think. Yeah,
that's cool. I bet that's pretty fun. Yeah. Well, Jeanne, again, thank you so much for participating in this interview, and we hope to work with you a lot over the next few years. And for anyone out there that is just not yet ready to really understand or embrace the idea of customer experience, I guarantee you all it takes is one read of this book, and I believe Jeanne's words will change how you think about it. And I know it helped me a lot, and I already was a believer. So, Jeanne, thank you again for participating in the interview, and I look forward to talking with you again down the road.
Great, thanks everybody. Good to have this time with you.
Hey guys, Beth Lovett in Business Development. If you enjoyed this episode, then please share with your friends, and don't forget to tune in to the next episode of Cleaning Up. Have you ever wondered if you wanted to be in business for yourself? If so, then don't hesitate to give me a call at 205-789-8027 or email me at bethl@ineedamaid.com. And if you just want a window shop, then you can see us online at twomaidsfranchise.com.